The O5 Council sat in silence at what they had just heard. Finally, Four's gentle voice broke the reverie. "What did you say?" "I said it was hopeless." Four watched the weathered old man slump into his chair. "You're the last person I expect to hear that from, 10. Look at the data. The orange zone has shrunk by 2%. We've lost 2 sites worth of personnel and skips in the last month alone." Before he could continue, a blip on 11's screen borrowed her attention. She rubbed her temple. 2 more task forces are lost. Eta 5 and Phi 2. One rose slightly. "Are they dead?" Eta 5 suffered catastrophic losses against a 3396 empowered living mountain range. No further details. "And Phi 2? A pause too long. "1 member dead, the rest defected." "Shit." 2 spoke up finally. "We need to beef up Alabaster. Every drop of resources goes into containment or neutralization if possible." 3 joined in. "I don't like this. This isn't us anymore. Putting most of mankind in camps and labs is overstepping our place." 2 cocked his head. "You picked a really bad time to suddenly grow a heart, 3. It's just containment of anomalies. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing. Nothing has changed except the scale and the budget. There won't be a mankind unless we do our jobs and do them now." 4 shifted. A formal vote then. For or against increasing the scope of Project Alabaster and making containment and neutralization of the 3396 spread the primary Foundation mission directive. A handful of voices quietly said, "In favor," one after the other. 3, 4, and 8 voted to oppose. The remainder stood silently as history marched forward. 052 disconnected from the holographic call and returned to his favorite chair. Not that his current residence had much of a view. 13 bunkers were located around, inside it, or near the planet, each one containing someone who at one point would have been rightly called a king or queen of the world. One of these bunkers contained 05-2, designed by the Foundation's best and brightest. Bristling with the most advanced technology on the planet, the fortress is located a kilometer beneath the desert sands of somewhere redacted. A titanic block of concrete and various named and unnamed metals, all protecting a singular room, a heart where 052 resided. The fortress defied any earthquake, hurricane, or asteroid that dared to try to reach him, but right now it had a huge hole in it. Alarms blared all over the labyrinthine circulatory system of corridors. Classified machines bent the very fabric of space within the fortress to confuse and disorient any would-be intruders, as well as protect from outside disasters. One could walk for 100 kilometers and never get any closer to the heart if they didn't know the way. The flashing cognito-hazardous emergency lights looked down upon miles of destroyed corridors. Massive guns lay destroyed, smoke still flowing from their shattered and melted barrels. Several humanoid bodies lay here, torn apart. One indistinct melted red corpse had its fist embedded within the broken remains of a Scranton reality disruptor. The air around it sputtered and rippled with the machine's dying breaths as the corpse's skeleton twitched. What was once a laser defense grid whirred quietly, sparks dripping from it like tears. A motionless body made of sparkling crystal lay in pieces before it, and the deadly beams had left their mark on both it and the surrounding walls and guns. Deeper still, the walls were torn apart and corroded. One wall had been chewed to pieces by a swarm of fiery moths. Another had been turned to rock candy and shattered. Further into the complex, the more esoteric the defenses, and the more strangely they had been overcome. A turret was being chewed up by a Tyrannosaurus Rex made of plasma. A body most certainly did not lie crumpled in a 10-meter circle where reality was crushed flat to 2 dimensions and then rolled up into non-existence. A missile the size of a person sat in the air, encased in bone. A defense drone melted in a puddle of cheese. The Scranton reality anchors had sat quietly and impotently along the walls the entire time, for an anchor can hold a boat in place, but it can't stop it from sinking. Alarms kept blaring. Agent Palinez ran one last diagnostic check on a Cigarro's suit and activated all systems. They would be here any second. 052 was in a Saguaro suit of his own. If it was the last wall to be protecting him, there were far worse options than metal, polymer, and the redacted stuffed shell, powered by a black-boxed skip and an AI AD to move it faster than he could think, and a whole lot of hope. The only problem, that his suit was still powering up. Agent Palinez had always been a man of few words. Secure. Agent Figueroa continued. Contain. 052 felt the chill down his spine. Protect. Get behind us, sir. Palinez moved quickly and generated a force field seconds before a gigantic column of burning acetylene erupted from one of the attacker's hands. One instance of 2 arms holding 2 more disembodied arms made of brass led the charge of about 25 mutants. The 2 bodyguards braced. Their suits were experimental and only superficially tested. Still, they had a job to do. Agent Figueroa stepped forward and went on the offensive. She let loose a pulse of energy that threw the first wave back and gave her a second to breathe, before shooting a gray-skinned 2-headed man in the chest with her laser. One mutant extended its veins and arteries, which now ended in sharp points, and began to pry at the armor plating while another attempted to distract Figueroa with blasts of magma. A burst of electricity from the suit shot into the veins of the mutant, but the mutant held its ground, screaming. Another mutant, with only mouths on its face and neck, opened all of them to scream at Figueroa. She dodged more magma and then swung the vein guy into the path of the devastating sonic waves, disintegrating him. The scales of armor he'd managed to scrape loose fell off as well. Just gotta hold on. Palinez wasn't holding on as well. After narrowly escaping another plasma Dakota Raptor and dispatching it with a magnetic field generator, one older man had affixed both of Palinez's feet to the floor with an ultra-strong pink adhesive gunk and was currently attempting to dissolve the armor with acid while 2 more mutants held Palinez. Palinez had diverted power to his right leg and moved it, ripping up a piece of the floor along with it. Off guard, the chemical mutant was sliced in half by Palinez's energy blade, but his job was done. Rita grit her teeth. Now or never. Seconds ago, she just watched Ernesto die, giving her the opening she needed. She stayed behind Dylan and his rapidly breaking stone wall, and extended a single hair from her arm. The hair grew in length and stretched out past the rock wall, past Ernesto's remains, past David, desperately absorbing the armored man's blasts, toward the millimeter-wide breach in the suit. It then entered the gap and weaved its way past the layers and cracks, past the carbon-woven undersuit, right down to the agent's skin. Rita's single black hair touched a brown one on the agent's arm, and her eyes widened. In her mind, she spoke the word that she had felt when the blessed goo had raised her up, the word etched onto the DNA of every part of her cell. Thrive. Then a shudder that pulsed through his entire body. Every one of his hairs stood on end, and they wouldn't sit back down. The hairs grew longer and longer. Some doubled back onto his skin, creating new follicles that instantly sprouted even more hair. The hair filled the suit, and the pressure began to crush him. His ears and nose hairs had nowhere else to go. He could feel himself suffocating. A bad hair day indeed. Exhausted, Rita fell to the floor as Palinez asphyxiated. His heart finally stopped, and the suit systems executed one last command. The outer shell fragmented, and the pieces shot out at twice the speed of sound, as the rest of it exploded, turning a 6-meter radius, including Rita, David, and Dylan, into nothing but atoms and light. Armando clenched his fists, all 12 of the ones he had active right now. The blessed blue-green gift had merged with his original anomaly and pushed him far beyond whatever he thought he could be. After spending so many years in a containment cell, he was finally in control of his anomaly, and soon he would be in control of his own destiny as well, when the foundation that had imprisoned him was gone. The second guard was more vicious. She had just torn one of them in half, and then nullified a retaliatory swarm of electricity wasps. Rita's down. Ernesto's down. We're gonna have to tear the whole thing open to kill her. Armando tore off an arm made of solid heptonitrocubane. Using several more arms in a chain, he hooked the dangerously explosive arm around the agent's neck. The explosion threw the remaining mutants back and filled the room with smoke. One mutant clapped his hands and the smoke coalesced into black metal needles, which converged upon the agent. She flung them away into another mutant, and then activated the artificial gravity generator, bringing everyone else to their knees. It took a pretty big chunk of power, but Figueroa deemed it worth the chances to pick them off. She moved toward one gold-skinned woman, who shielded herself from the scaly man next to her under a glowing force bubble resembling a tumbleweed. Figueroa knew it would take too much time to break the shield. She cranked up the gravity near those two for a split second, crushing them. Graviton generator shutting down. Shit. The outer shell wouldn't hold much longer. That last explosion had managed to crack it, and the magma earlier disrupted the polymer gel. The lowest layer of Genesis weave was overworking, trying to repair itself fast enough to cushion the blows. And with her partner down, and the O5 suit at only 61%, she'd have to improvise. 3 of them remained: Armando, Angela, and Eric. They could see the breaches in the remaining guard's armor. If they could take her out, they could crack open the O5 suit like an egg at their leisure. Easier said than done, of course, but desperation was one hell of a drug. Armando and Eric rushed the guard, who responded with a solid pulse. Armando quickly ripped the arm off and grew a wing of an extinct anomalous bat that negated the sound. Eric jumped high, and Armando grabbed his leg with 3 more arms and swung him downward at the guard, who extended her right arm into a shield. Eric increased his mass 100-fold at the moment of impact, smashing the shield and throwing the guard to the floor. Not giving her a chance to respond, Armando pinned her to the ground with 17 heavy metallic arms, while Eric hammered away at the armored plating with ultra-dense fists. Shell integrity critical. The Genesis weave began to give. The power systems were shorting out left and right. Figueroa was sure she had cracked a rib or two now. She had activated the magnetic repulsor field and sent the arms holding her flying away. She charged one last shot of her psychic amplifier and liquefied Eric's brain before her left wrist erupted in a shower of sparks. Armando slammed a Brachiosaurus front leg into her face, which she managed to block, then fired 2 energy balls right into Angela's face and stomach without missing a beat. Armando grabbed her with several long octopus-like tentacles, but Figueroa let out a charged shockwave from her central power core that sent him flying. He hit the wall and managed to tear off some of the armor with the tentacle suckers. Armando summoned more math than he'd ever used and grew an arm with a nanometer-thick neutron star skin. He couldn't maintain it for long, but he was desperate now. The gravity overwhelmed Figueroa and pulled her towards Armando, and he slammed her into the midsection, sending cracks spiraling through the rest of the suit and breaking her faceplate. Figueroa didn't care that her face was exposed now. She had this in the bag. She reached to her side and threw her only null grenade, the gravity of the arm directing it. Armando ripped off the arm and threw it as hard as he could toward her. Figueroa flinched as the grenade erupted into absolute nothingness, leaving an empty void of reality right in front of her face where the arm was. She then diverted power to her palm cannons. Her wrists held together as a ball of blue plasma glowed in her hands. She then extended her arms to fire the beam at Armando. He frantically generated arms as fast as he could to block the brunt of the beam, but Figueroa kept walking toward him. Then she stopped. The beam flickered and then cut out. Figueroa gave one single cry of pain, followed by silence, as her right arm and face turned into translucent crystal. Armando turned his head and saw Angela, barely breathing, straining to keep 3 of her good eyes open, and holding the 4th bloody, disembodied eye in her own hand. The gaze of all 4 of her eyes turned whatever she was looking at into salt. As long as she kept them focused intently on the same thing, the suit shifted, repairing the transmutation almost as soon as it happened. But Figueroa was done for. Her heart crystallized, and the suit exploded. Less forcefully this time. Angela dropped the eye and collapsed, finally succumbing to the gaping hole in her body. 052's suit unfolded, as it was programmed to do upon the destruction of the other 2. Better to fight at less than 100% than to be a sitting duck, as they had reasoned. Armando spat blood and put up a dozen more fists. Sudden death, winner take all? Armando stood over 052, who was gasping at the shattered remains of his suit. Where's your power now? 052 coughed up blood. Was it worth it? All the lives you threw away to get here. Armando narrowed his eyes. That's real rich coming from you. Every single one of us volunteered. We knew what we were doing, and we all decided the reward was worth it. And what reward would that be? A brand new world, where there's a place for us that's not a cell. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a place in our world for you. Armando had more hands than anyone, but it only took one for him to strangle the man. Another crack in the foundations of the old world, hewn by the dead citizens of the new.